Okay, going back as far as I can remember, I I had gone back further than this, but this was later on. I remember being in a children's home, and I would have been 2.5, and I remember being in a cot, and the other children were in cots, and I could see that people were mistreating them. There was nothing I could do about it. I just had to love those kids. And I think I was there for about 6 months. And I always had a thing about people saying goodbye because I was waiting for my real mum to come back and get me because she didn't say goodbye. Elsie, that's my mum, was unable to manage all these responsibilities. She had 2 brothers and 5 brothers and sisters to look after. And in March 1954, William, Robert, Carole, Sylvia were admitted to Dr. Bernardo's care until the future was more certain. So in May 1955, she married an American serviceman. He returned to the States, and Elsie planned to join him. My adopted mum came round, and I remember seeing all the children putting on their best behaviour because when the grown-ups came round, it meant that you might be taken home somewhere. I remember that. But my mum chose me because I was the most miserable, unhappiest little girl in the whole place. And she thought I want to take her home. So when I first arrived there, they put me in a cot and I would unscrew the nuts and the bolts, and then they'd screw them up, and then they'd put string, and I would sit there and undo the nuts and the bolts and the string. I was still waiting for someone to get me when they realized it's about time she had a bed. I did love it in me when I got there first, but when I went there, I couldn't speak. The only person I spoke to was my adopted mum and dad, and I had a dog called Billy, and I would sit very quietly in amongst all the flowers with my dog next to me, and I was just very content just to be on my own and feel safe. There was something that was present that looked after me. Didn't have no need to have friends and stuff like that. That did change later on. With my brother, Christopher, he had learning diffs, and it was difficult for him later on in life to live because he'd never got over the abandonment of his own mother. So as we grew up, I looked after him. We used to go up the gully, and then we'd go into a field, and then there was like a tree house, and we'd climb up into this tree house. Some would take the piss out of him, and I'd have to run after them. I was a bit chunky, I was always a bit chunky, and they'd have a stick, and I'd try and get them because they were taking fun of me brother. I worked in a home for teenage boys with learning difficulties because I could do it with my eyes shut, because I'd learned it from when I was really young, how to be with somebody that has those sort of needs. Really, it was my path, but because I wanted that connection, I called for the spinsters up the road, something like 7 o'clock in the morning, and walked down to the church, and I'd be listening to everything that was happening because I needed that support, and I needed to understand the teachings that were going on. Because at that point, because of the trauma, and my dad was abusive, I'm not prepared to say in which way, but having gone to church and realizing at a young age, like 8, that I needed cleansing, I would burn myself with a hot water bottle to be okay, to be cleansed from that situation. My dad was a workaholic. He couldn't come in the house and take his coat off and sit and have dinner with us because he was on one business to another business to another business. We left when I was 11, which was a very good thing to get out of that home. So my mum went to live with her brother, Uncle Alec, who was more of a father than any fathers. And he had learning diffs, couldn't stand being in the house. Eventually, he went to live with my mum when he got older, and she died, and he couldn't really cope with it. So we had him living in the squat that we squatted, big old rectory, and made it into a housing co-op. And it's still going today, like 40 years later. Me and my first husband, we had our 2 children there. We would do a service for the house in the mornings. He'd do the Christian side and I'd do a Zen side. And I was the one that changed the beds and nappies and sang them stories at night. And then slowly, bit by bit, we had the finances from the government to make flats. Newspapers came, then the TV came, because it was such an old, big building. And then it became a nursing home. I had a healing centre here, and people used to come from Bath, Glastonbury and Bristol. And then I did training when I was here. I did my acupuncture training and shiatsu training. And I stayed here for 16 years. And then my ex stayed here for another 10 years. And he built an art studio because he was an artist. Summer 1969, winter 1976. I love you, Carole. He's a fantastic artist. It took a little while getting into the world, but out of all my relationships, he was probably the best one. When I met him, because of what had happened to me, and we were in the 60s and stuff like that, I saw sex as very different than love. So I was with him, and I absolutely adored him, and I still adore him today. And I went on holiday with a friend, and we ended up having a one-night stand. And then I got pregnant, so he never knew whether the first one was his or not. And I was devastated because there was no DNA then. It only just started. And I wanted to believe it was his. When she was 18, she was having trouble because she's recently, the last couple of years, been diagnosed with ADHD and autism. And it transpires that I've got it, and most of my family's got it. So it was about 3 years ago, she decided to have a DNA test, and she's Danish. But at the time we were together, I waited 21 years for him to forgive me. It was terrible because he'd make out we were on it and doing it. We decided to have another child. I'm sitting by the sea on a bench, and he says, I don't know if I can be with you because of this issue. We went on a dance workshop, but on this occasion, I worked with our ending. He didn't know this was going to happen. On the lunchtime on Sunday, I said, should we dance our ending together? Do you want to join me with that? So we did. And it made it so much easier to let go and just carry on with life. But it was a tragedy because I absolutely loved him too. With my second husband, which was Sarjo from the Gambia, it was like 2 stars meeting. It was like the heavens just went chong like that. And I went over there for 3 months. Before I decided that it was going to be for real, I wanted to live there. But I wanted it to be more than just a holiday romance. And again, I believe what people tell me, and he told me he loved me and blah, blah, blah. But I got more upset when that ended. But anyway, now we are just friends. He has my back and I've got his back. And then there was that deal. Very lovely man, but man unto his own. And I couldn't, because it was in Morocco and I could not maintain the relationship on any level because it was locked down. I didn't have the finances to keep throwing money into projects that then turned out. He didn't protect me. He made no effort to do right by me, whilst I'm hankering after somebody, which is what I did when I was a child and a baby, hankering after, oh, they do want me, they will come back. Because he's in Morocco. I've only just got rid of him. He is out of the phone. He is totally out of the phone. So I've been had a few times in relationships, trusting what they're telling me. In fact, all of them. And they don't come up with the goods. I've never really felt totally lonely. I felt abandonment, but I've never felt lonely because I have all these spiritual relationships going on. Elliot Cohen wrote a book called Plant Spirit Medicine, and he was a teacher in the acupuncture college in America. So he'd done some shamanic work with the Huichol people, and he got permission to teach how to travel to the spirit of the plants. So the plants can do the work instead of the needle. I went on his course maybe 3 times. He came over from America. So I joined up with a class, and then he would have these fires, and they call them teaching fires. And they were just fantastic. And I think we had to do the offerings, and I thought, I love these fires, maybe I should do it. So I just did my medicine in my own way. Because I know that I can heal, I also know that I have the potential to do damage. Because as much as you're in the light, you can be in the dark. So I'm very aware of what I verbally say to people. I had a feeling for the elements, because the elements are the same in any traditional civilization. The weather beings, they have energy, the same as everything has energy. Yeah, the water being part of the moon, the tides that come in and out, all these things are kind of connected with each other. That's why I just love this image. My first husband done it. It's the St. Bride, it's just been sold, and he gave me this picture. The myth is that she went over from Ireland on a little boat and arrived in Iona in Scotland. The water controls fire, and it's like the tears that you cry. It helps to cool down your excessive fire. I had a connection with her when I went to Oregon for a fire reunion. The sea I felt there, I'd known it, and I'd known it forever. It was, Silly Isles was the closest thing to it. I didn't know why I knew it. I just sat there and thought, wow. And when I came back from America, I was on the coast, Oregon. When I came back from America, about a week later, I received my DNA results to say that I was from the Salish people who are in Oregon on the west coast. And then from then, every now and again I'd go into the computer, try and find different organizations and to go out watching them row between the islands. I've taken all this time to embrace my ancestral culture and live it and stand in it. But because of how I've been, it completely resonates. They're not seen as good people by the white people. They gave them temporary housing and put them on a reservation. When they got given the land, I've seen pictures of it, like back in the day, their schools was open to all different people, whereas the other reservations only had their schools for the kids of the reservation. So that carries through me, this inclusion, this diversity, this acceptance of people, and that's always been with me. So my son only asked me last week, Mum, we're going to have to get the tickets for our trip because he's going to come with me. Mum and son adventure to the Salish people. I got involved with the fires a few years before. I was invited to the powwow by the chief, and we stayed in his house, and we went to a sweat lodge the night before, and it was amazing. There was an eagle fest with eagles, and we went out and out and out to bury these eagles, and that was my first encounter with First Nation people. They were from the Micmac tribe. I always knew that I was American because that was on my adopted papers, but I didn't know whether it was a Hispanic or American or Native American. The fire helped me connect with my ancestors and heal my heart and make me feel that I was at home. The ritual comes from the Huichol people from the Sierra Madre Mountains outside of Mexico City. And the fire has been part of their tradition since their beginning of time. So they loaned us the ritual to the Western world because they could see that we'd forgotten how to sit around and share together. We put 4 offerings in the fire, and one of them is tobacco, and that's from the north, and that's a place of wisdom. In the west, there's wood. It's transformative. It changes. So this is the cocoa bean. The cocoa bean is the direction of the south. It's the heart, compassion, creativity, but it's also for courage. So then we have Carole, and Carole is resin, and this is for the air, the excitement of what's to come. You take one of the offerings and put it in your hand. It can be any order, and you put it in, and then you walk around the fire. But when you leave, you take a stick and you put the stick in, and you walk around the fire once, and this protects you for when you go out into the ordinary world again. And then I will be talking about how the fire has helped me become a firekeeper and want to commit for the rest of my life doing a community sacred fire every month, because my life is community and loving.
I know I got a purpose. I do healing and I do the fires, but I've hidden myself because I've recently found out I got ADHD and autism. So I've hidden who I am for so long that now I'm not hiding anymore, and I am who I am.
So this is kind of a story about how I dealt with it and who I met on the way. You do all this work about nature and Mother Earth. How can you, how can I be in touch with my womb and Mother Earth when I'm not in touch
with the person that bore me out of their womb.
It took a long time before I decided I wanted to get in touch, something like 1989.
I tried to see her. She didn't want to see me. And her district attorney, I mean, she wrote me a letter saying, don't get in touch with my family. It was too late. I'd already got in touch with them. Well, can you tell me what I can do and what I can't do? Because I said, look, I accept that she doesn't want to see me, but I want her to read a letter. And he phoned me up and he said, she's not going to read it. So you just think, okay, bye. I didn't have any feeling towards her until, I don't know, 10 years ago when I chose to forgive her and understand that she could only do what she could do in the time that she was at. And by forgiving her, then I was then in touch. And I could be loving. My daughter got her own business with Company's House called Neatly. And she works with people with ADHD and autism. And she's done a lot of work. Benji, my son, and he works very hard too for his family. He's in business. He's got 3 boys and a girl, which takes me on to Michaela now. She's 30, and she's just had her baby Trey, which we're all just loving because she had him very early at 22 weeks, and he's a miracle. And she's an amazing mum for their little boy Trey. Making this video, I've realized that our birth mother had 3 children before she went to America, and my baby sister still lives, who I totally and utterly love, and we're like twins, and we're from the same mother. She inspired me to do this. Well, Sharon, her name is. And I'd like to say last thank you to Grandfather Fire, who's at the core and the base of everything that I do and the world. It's inside the earth and it's up in the sun.
I just close my eyes and the earth is carried away by the river, by the river.
From one place. Yes? Thank you very much.
Hello to my children. I'm doing the fire. All the nations, all the cultures around the world coming together to celebrate love and the fire.
Like the river, like the water, like the water.